Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. It's Emerson Phillips, joined by Wes Mitchell. The Will Muschamp midweek press conference was held today. South Carolina coming off a loss to Texas A&M and getting ready to host the Georgia Bulldogs in what will be the second of this South Carolina 5-game homestand here. Wes, you were at the press conference today, and news coming out today that both Brian Edwards and Deebo Samuel were back at practice today, so this is great news for Gamecock football.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they actually practiced on Sunday as well, and then were able to go. It sounded from the way Muschamp talked like they were, full go today. I think with Deebo Samuels especially, you sort of are always a little bit hesitant to say that he's definitely back just because we've seen that thing flare up on him time after time again. But certainly at this point early in the week, seems like those two guys are back. And, Muschamp, I believe the way Muschamp said it was, we were better coaches today than they were without those two guys out there. So, I think when you're talking about an offense that has been sorely lacking playmakers, those are two of your best playmakers. And to have them back certainly gives South Carolina's offense a shot in the arm against Georgia. And they're going to need those guys out there, and they're going to need them to go make some plays for them.
All right, Wes, weather could be a factor this weekend as well. We got a hurricane that the projected path of Hurricane Matthew is somewhere along the South Carolina coast, and it certainly is possible that we could get tropical storm conditions into the Midlands this weekend. So we'll talk more about that as we move on here. Wes, Muschamp did not name a quarterback starter for the Georgia game this weekend, so it could be McElwain, it could be Perry Orth. Orth came in and gave the Gamecocks a lift in the fourth quarter of the A&M game this past weekend. So best guess right now, Wes, who do you think is going to start on Saturday?
Yeah, I think what we do know is that we'll see both. We're going to see both those guys. I don't feel as confidently as I have the other times I've predicted, starters on the podcast. I think I've hit on those so far, knock on wood, but I think it makes sense to go with Perry Orth. So I would lean towards that, for our Gamecock Central members. I hope as the week goes on, I'll be able to get word on who's been taking most snaps and, sort of put that out there for them. But, I think you look at the way Orth sort of, and they talked a little bit about how Orth brought a little bit more of a downfield vertical passing game. Now Muschamp did say, McElwain was able to hit some of those balls against ECU, didn't really hit any against Kentucky. So it's not that he can't physically make those throws. He's capable, but right now I think as far as just the comfort level doing that, obviously Orth brings something a little bit different to the passing game there. So, I think you look at what South Carolina's going to have to do to win this game. Clearly they're going to need probably both of those guys, but I think right now you look at the way Orth ended the last game, you'd probably give him a shot to start. Although, I think it's also worth noting, I think it's a much different mindset as a quarterback coming into a game when you're down 2 scores versus starting a game. Orth was kind of in that gunslingers, take some chances because, I know I've got to hit some balls down the field mindset. He was trying to fit balls into windows that, those aren't throws you're going to make 1st and 10 in the first quarter. So I think you have to put everything into perspective and not just take a couple drives and say, well, clearly Orth's the guy. But I think knowing everything we know right now, I think this is a winnable game for South Carolina, even though they're still, opened at over a touchdown underdogs. It's a winnable game for South Carolina. I think they'll be in it. I think right now, Orth probably gives them the best chance at a W.
All right, McElwain threw for 34 yards through 3 quarters on Saturday, and then Orth came in and threw for more than that on the first drive that he came in. Actually gave the Gamecocks, some hope late in that A&M game. 24-13 A&M over South Carolina this past Saturday, so we're turning our attention now to South Carolina and Georgia. 7:30 kickoff Saturday night at Williams-Brice. It'll be on the SEC Network. Gamecock Central Radio here, Emerson Phillips with Wes Mitchell. You can download the Gamecock Central Radio app on the App Store and on Google Play. It's a free phone app that allows you to listen to GCR podcasts on your cell phone, anywhere you receive cell phone service. To subscribe to the podcast, search for Gamecock Central Radio. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and other popular services, or visit radio.GamecockCentral.com. Wes Mitchell was asked in the press conference today, who's been the most consistent offensive lineman? Who'd he say?
Yeah, he said Zach Bailey, and I think if you pay close attention to the offensive line, I think that was kind of the expected answer. Bailey is a kid that the staff was very high on coming into the season. He's obviously just looks outstanding physically, and he's been able to back that up with strong play. So now they just need the other guys to sort of get some consistency around him. I thought there were some maybe flashes of things coming together on the offensive line this past week. You consider, A&M's easily the best front seven South Carolina's played so far. So if you consider that matchup, then, I think there were some positive things from the offensive line. I thought Malik Young did some good things. For a guy to make his first career start against Texas A&M, number 9 team in the country, big SEC game, he held his own. He was not out of place out there. So he was in there. He did well. I still think potentially you at some point want to maybe look at DJ Park inside at a guard spot potentially and give him a shot there if Malik Young's going to be your right tackle. Obviously, they're happy that they've got Blake Camper back in the mix as well. He can get in there at right tackle too potentially. And then I think they'd love to have Donnell Stanley back after the break. I think they really do miss him. So I do think there's at least some signs of life for the offensive line this past week.
Wes, one player that you've been touting really all summer and throughout the start of the season here is Rico Dowdle, the running back who made his debut on Saturday. And I thought he brought some ability to the position, Wes, that maybe some of the other running backs don't have. And that's not a knock on A.J. Turner or David Williams, but I really like what Rico Dowdle brought to the table in terms of being a physical runner and his ability to gain yards between the tackles. He looked good, and the Gamecocks look pretty good at running back right now with Williams, Turner, and Rico Dowdle.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I give Bobby Bentley, the running backs coach, a lot of credit for his management of that position. They've had to push some buttons along the way. A.J. Turner, obviously a hard-working kid who just busts his tail in every practice. It seems like they've got David Williams, sort of finally at that point they want him to be at. And then Rico Dowdle, I was happy to see him finally get his chance. I was happy to see that he looked about like what I expected him to, because I've had a good feeling about this kid for a long time. And I tell you what, you have to also consider he was able to do that against a top SEC defense with an offensive line that has struggled. They're number 9 in the country. And consider this, Dowdle, he got injured originally working out back at home before he even got it to South Carolina. So he had surgery. He was basically he was limited for just about the entire summer, and he's missed, almost all of preseason camp. He didn't start practicing, not full go, until last week. So he kind of basically got a full week's worth of practice. Maybe a week and a half if you count some of the non-full go stuff he was able to do prior. But point is, this is a true freshman who didn't even get to go through a preseason camp like most of your true freshmen do. So for him to go out there and do what he did, I think it's just absolutely impressive. It makes you wonder just how good this kid can be, with a little more time in the system. And I thought, Emerson, I thought they sort of managed him a little bit. I felt like they were putting him out there in spurts to maybe you get him out there, then you bring him back and you coach him up a little bit, and you make sure he knows where he's supposed to be on any given play. I think he was probably out of the game late in the fourth quarter because you're going to be throwing the ball. You don't want to put a guy like that in pass protection, when he's not used to doing much of that. So they'll have to manage his snaps, I think. But he's also a guy, did you notice how violent he seemed to run?
Yeah.
He was going in like a man on a mission. I'm curious to see what a guy like Rico Dowdle could do with 10, 15, 18 carries. That's not really been South Carolina's MO offensively, to get one back that many carries. But ultimately, Daddle just strikes me as possibly being one of those kids that could get better as a game goes on. We haven't got to see that yet, but I get that gut feeling this could be one of those backs that can just wear a defense down.
Yeah, and you got to like the youth at the position with A.J. Turner, redshirt freshman, and now Rico Dowdle emerging, a true freshman from Asheville, North Carolina. We're going to see a lot more of these two. They've got a lot of college football in front of them. The Gamecocks look very solid at the running back spot.
Yeah, and Tyson Williams, continue as a transfer, continue to hear just outstanding things about what he's able to do, behind the scenes at practice. So, that's another kid. I think that position, we probably talked about that position, 5 weeks ago, and said, man, running back position is a huge question mark right now. I think in the next year or so, though, that it very quickly becomes a strength.
Yeah, no question. Tyson Williams, a product of Crestwood High School in Sumter County, started his college career at the University of North Carolina and transferred to South Carolina. He's had to sit out this year, but he'll be in the mix at running back next year as well. So the Gamecocks looking real good at running back for the foreseeable future. Wes, Muschamp gave some interesting insight into the Lorenzo Nunez situation today. Nunez has not played this year, and we had heard talk a week or two ago that he would likely redshirt, and Muschamp cleared the air on Nunez today, and I thought it was encouraging. Anytime you hear about a kid that has played and then, he's healthy, but he might redshirt, you always wonder if there's a possibility that player might transfer. But Nunez, it sounds like, is comfortable with a red shirt. He wants to redshirt, according to Muschamp, and that's what the coaching staff wants as well. So it looks like a red shirt for Lorenzo Nunez.
Yeah, it does. I think, if he didn't play last week, and if he wasn't going to play this week, potentially, because I thought there was a chance with the struggles at quarterback, maybe you reverse and sort of look at a possible Wildcat situation with him just to get another playmaker on the field, because McElwain, has struggled. I mean, frankly, he struggled a little bit with the running game portion of the offense as well, too. So I thought there might be a chance you get a look at Nunez. But yeah, it seems like both he and the staff are set on him redshirting. Then he'll, of course, go from there. I think anytime you're talking about a quarterback, redshirting, when it's not his first year in the program or changing positions, you certainly always know that there's still a chance of someone transferring just in general, because it happens so often. But yeah, Muschamp obviously said that Lorenzo and he are sort of on the same page there. So we'll see where that goes, and if the guy can make that smooth transition to receiver, because I do think that it's one of those things where it's very easy to get caught up in Nunez's athleticism and say it should be an easy transition, but there's so much more that goes into playing that position than just getting out there and running a couple of routes.
A couple of other items before we wrap it up today, Wes. Weather could be a factor Saturday with Hurricane Matthew bearing down on us. Put your meteorologist hat on and give us an idea, what things may look like this weekend. No indication yet that this game will be moved or rescheduled, so it looks like we're on for a 7:30 kick Saturday night, but Hurricane Matthew could bring wind and rain.
Yeah, we're still on right now. It's I've noticed these high school games are starting to go ahead and do their thing, which is to move games to Thursday. But yeah, so far everything's on. I know they have all these different, what would you say, extrapolations, I guess, of where the path could take this storm, and some of them look okay for our great state, and some of them don't look very good at all. So I think that's something that's still very much going to be a factor, and it's kind of I mean, it's just sort of strange to me that we're actually exactly a year from the flood last year, and you know what? I actually remember 2 years ago when South Carolina and Georgia played in Columbia. It was sort of a later in the season game for the two teams, and or not as late as this year, but sort of it wasn't week 2, and like it normally is, and there was a huge storm on game day that day as well. Obviously not the size of this Hurricane Matthew, but because that game got delayed by storms. So just kind of strange that this is coming at this particular timing.
Yeah, it is. So we'll continue to watch the weather as we move through the week here on Gamecock Central. Wes, it looks like Georgia's getting Nick Chubb back. He only played one snap in their loss to Tennessee. And what do you make of this Georgia team right now, Wes? They've got to be reeling. They got blown out 2 weeks ago against Ole Miss. And it looked like, they had won the Tennessee game, and then Tennessee beat them with a Hail Mary on the last play after Georgia had been flagged for excessive celebration when they took the lead on a touchdown with about 11 seconds left in the ball game. So, Wes, is this an angry, pissed-off Georgia team that comes in, or is this a team that's still licking its wounds?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. I expect Georgia to come in ready to play. At the same time, this Georgia team really has not played particularly well all year long. I'm curious to see how they match up with South Carolina. I'm a little bit surprised that line is what it is, but with it being at home, South Carolina, this to me, for the fan base, I feel like, and for myself and the media, I get as excited about the Georgia game every year as probably any other game on the schedule, because there's something a little bit extra when this game happens. I try to get a good pulse of the fan base, and I didn't feel like the fan base was particularly excited last week for this Texas A&M game. But there were people already talking about the Georgia game. So I think the fan base will be excited. I think they're going to have to be. They're going to have to create a home field advantage. And it's a night game. That's something that South Carolina fans got accustomed to for a few years there where everything was going well, and then we've not got to experience too many of these. So I got the impression the fan base is going to be excited. It'll be a true home field advantage for South Carolina. And, they've got a freshman quarterback on the other side that they're going to have to rattle. And I think, again, it goes back to something we've said for all these games. South Carolina needs something good to happen early on. They need to get off to a good start and put Georgia in a situation where they maybe have to get away from their game plan a little bit. So I'm excited for the game. I think it's going to be a good one, and we'll see if South Carolina can continue to make progress.
Yeah, Carolina, Georgia is always fun. Wes, I hope we get some weather. I like weather games. Football is the only sport that's played in the weather anymore. And, the high schools, you mentioned a lot of high school games being rescheduled Friday. And obviously, if we're going to have hurricane-type conditions or tropical storm conditions, can't play football in that. But the high schools have gotten to the point where they don't even play in the rain anymore. So I'm looking for a good weather game on Saturday for South Carolina, Georgia. That'll make it even more fun.
Yeah, as long as it's just a little rain, I'm good with that. I'm not trying to have that hurricane smack us, but a little rain, especially. Hey, Georgia, the I formation football team. Still, you don't see too many of those sticking around anymore either.
That's
so,
true.
I know they go into the spread, but that would be pretty old school to see. It's kind of an in the phone booth type game where it's man on man and. See what happens.
All right, Wes, we covered a lot of ground today. Appreciate you.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, he's Wes Mitchell. I'm Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. We got plenty more coming up for you here on Gamecock Central on the South Carolina-Georgia game. 7:30 kickoff Saturday night at Williams-Brice. We'll continue to keep an eye on Hurricane Matthew, and we'll let you know more on this ball game as we move through the week. Thanks for being with us.